My daughter-in-law called me dead weight at 70. I sold the luxury car, the toy she coveted so much, and donated all the money. You don't have a place to die, she told me. Little did she know I now have peace. The insult, when it came, didn't arrive with a bang, but with the quiet, calculated precision of a scalpel. It was a Tuesday evening, and the aroma of roasted chicken still lingered in the air of my son Daniel's house. I was clearing the table, a task I'd performed 100 times before, a silent exchange for their hospitality. My daughter-in-law, Clara, was at the kitchen counter, meticulously sorting through a pile of glossy real estate magazines. She had a way of making even mundane activities seem like high-stakes business. Daniel was on the couch, half listening, his eyes glued to the sports highlights on the television. "Honestly, Daniel," Clara said, her voice a low, theatrical whisper meant to be heard, "it's becoming a bit ridiculous. The house is already cramped, and with the market like it is, we could easily get $1 million for it. Maybe more." I knew what she was talking about. Their house, the one I had helped them secure the down payment for, the one I had spent weekends renovating myself, pouring my sweat and skill into every room. My wife, Eleanor, had wanted to give them a head start, a solid foundation. My wife had always been the softer, more generous one. I had been the one who believed in earning your place, but for them, I had yielded, and for years it had felt like a worthy sacrifice. "And then what, Clara?" Daniel mumbled, not looking up. "Where would Dad go?" "He's 70, Daniel, 70. At some point, we have to be realistic. We're talking about a prime investment property, $1 million asset tied up in nothing. He's just dead weight. Dead weight. Me, a man who had built a life, a career, a home with his own 2 hands, a man who had worked the lathe at the factory for 40 years, every shift, every holiday to provide. My fingers, calloused and thick from a lifetime of labor, tightened around the plates. I stood there, a ghost in my own son's home, a guest whose presence was now a liability. The moment stretched, but Daniel did not speak. He just shrugged, a small pathetic motion that sealed the deal. He wasn't a malicious man, not truly. He was just weak. A man easily swayed by the ambition of his wife. And in that moment I knew. The years of quiet resentment, the thinly veiled condescension, the endless hints about money and inheritance. It wasn't just Clara, it was them. The house, the car, my savings. It wasn't a family legacy to be cherished. It was a treasure chest to be plundered. They had been eyeing my possessions for years. First the modest investments, then the condo where I had lived since Eleanor passed, then the car, a sleek, beautiful 1968 Pontiac GTO, a classic I had restored from the frame up, piece by piece, a project that had consumed a decade of my life and every spare dollar I had. Clara called it my toy. It sat pristine in the garage of the condo, a monument to my past, a dream I had held onto. She was obsessed with that car. She'd talk about selling it to help with a new business venture, or a down payment for the beach house. It was always a hint, a test, and I, like an idiot, had always placated her with a gentle smile and a non-committal answer, but that night the smile was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve I hadn't felt in decades. As I stood there watching my son's indifference and my daughter-in-law's smug smile, a plan began to form. They saw me as a relic, an obstacle to their grand, luxurious future. They believed my passivity was a weakness. They believed I was a lamb ready for slaughter. Little did they know I was the shepherd. That night I went back to my condo, the silence a sharp contrast to the casual cruelty I had just witnessed. I sat in my armchair, the one Eleanor had bought me for my 50th birthday, and I thought about the words, dead weight. I thought about my wife, about the sacrifices we had both made. I thought about the countless hours I'd spent teaching Daniel how to change a tire, how to use a wrench, how to shake a man's hand with confidence. All for what? To be dismissed? To be discarded? No. The time for patience, for silent sacrifice was over. I wasn't just going to live, I was going to live with my dignity intact. The game had changed, and I was going to be the one to deal the cards. I opened my laptop, the one Daniel had bought for me, and then spent an hour lecturing me on how a 70-year-old could possibly use this thing. I pulled up my financial files. The first move was always the hardest. The car, the beautiful GTO, it had to go. They wanted it, they couldn't have it, not the way they thought. The car was not a tool for their future. It was a monument to my past, and now it was the key to my future. And it was going to be the first domino to fall. The following week, the wheels were set in motion almost silently. I had always been good with my hands, but a lifetime of managing finances, of reading fine print, of negotiating contracts for the union, had given me an education they never knew I possessed. They saw a quiet old man who spent his days puttering around the garage. I saw a man with a lifetime of experience that had been undervalued and overlooked. The first call I made was to my lawyer, Mr. Henderson, a man who had handled my affairs for 30 years and who had seen it all. I walked into his office, a place of hushed tones and polished mahogany, and laid out my plan. He listened, his face a mask of professional neutrality, but I saw the corner of his mouth twitching with a hint of a smile. "Are you sure about this, Mr. Sterling?" he asked, his voice low. "More sure about this than I've been about anything in a long time," I replied. "They think I'm a pigeon. I'm going to prove to them I'm a hawk." I knew its value, knew what it could fetch. When the dealer, a man named Frank, came to look at it, he was mesmerized. He knew the history of the car, the meticulous restoration I had performed. He knew it was one of a kind. The sale was swift and discreet. The wire transfer, a significant sum, landed in a new, separate account I had opened, one with no joint beneficiaries, no digital footprint they could trace. The GTO, the car Clara so desperately wanted to liquidate for their own gain, was now a ghost. $1 million ghost. Meanwhile, Clara's greed, like a rising tide, was becoming more brazen. She called me a few days after the sale, a saccharine sweetness in her voice that was almost repulsive. "Dad, I was just thinking, you know how much we want to help you out? We've been talking about selling your condo. The market is just perfect right now. We could get you a nice little assisted living apartment, something with a community, and you wouldn't have to worry about the upkeep anymore. We could even use the money from the car to help with the down payment." It was a beautiful, calculated trap, but I was no longer a mouse. I played along. "That's very thoughtful of you, Clara," I said, my voice as calm as a summer lake. "I'll think about it. It's a big decision." "A big decision, Dad? It's a no-brainer. We're doing this for you. You need to think about your future. You don't have a place to die in right now, you know." They energized me. They solidified my resolve. A single thought echoed in my mind. "You're wrong. I don't have a place to die. I have a place to live." The next phase of my plan was put into motion. The car money wasn't just going to sit in an account, it was going to work. I had spent years advising my factory co-workers on their pensions and investments. I had a knack for it. I found a charitable foundation, one that focused on helping retired factory workers with their medical bills. I contacted them, spoke to their board of directors, and presented my plan. I wanted to create a foundation, a substantial one in Eleanor's name. A place where my wife's memory could do some real good. The sum I transferred was staggering, all of it from the sale of the car plus a substantial portion of my savings. It was gone, from my accounts, from their grasp. I didn't tell them. I just waited. They were so busy building castles in the air with my money that they couldn't see the ground beneath them crumbling. Clara and Daniel would visit, and they would drop hints, little barbs, about me being behind the times, about needing to get with the program. They would look at my old, comfortable condo and see only dollar signs, not a home filled with a lifetime of memories. The irony was almost unbearable. They thought I was a fool, a simple old man too clueless to secure his own future. They thought they had me right where they wanted me. They were planning a dinner, a family intervention they called it, to corner me and force my hand on the sale of the condo. They wanted to make it a family affair, to use Daniel's sisters and their husbands to pressure me. What they didn't know was that I had already made my move, and the intervention would be a celebration of my freedom and the start of their demise. The night of the intervention arrived with a cool autumn breeze that carried the scent of rain. My entire family was there, Daniel and Clara, Daniel's two sisters, Lisa and Maria, and their husbands. They sat in my living room, the air thick with fake smiles and forced pleasantries. Clara, in a sleek designer suit, held court, her every gesture oozing with an arrogance she couldn't hide. She laid out their case with a practiced ease, a PowerPoint presentation of all the reasons I needed to sell my condo, how it was the best thing for everyone, how it would secure my future. "You'll make so many friends." The pity in their eyes was the final straw. It was time. I rose from my chair, my movement slow and deliberate. Every eye in the room was on me, expecting a surrender. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice calm, clear. "I appreciate you all caring so much about my future. And you're right, Clara. I've been thinking about what you said. I did need to secure my future. The first was a certified check, a substantial one, made out to the assisted living community they had chosen. "I've already paid your deposit, Clara," I said, "for 2 years. Her mouth fell open. "You'll be delighted to know they also have a memory care unit in case you ever need it. And don't worry, the check is good. It's from the money I received when I sold the car." Daniel looked up, his face pale. "The car? Dad, what are you talking about?" "Clara's little toy. I sold it a few weeks ago. Didn't I mention it? You sold it? But what about the down payment for the beach house, the one you promised me? She sputtered. Promised you? I chuckled. I don't recall a promise. A request, perhaps, a demand, certainly. But a promise? No. I've never promised you my possessions, Clara. My possessions are mine. I gestured to the other documents on the table. And as for the rest of the money, and it's gone, all of it, you all were so concerned about my future, about me having a place to die. Well, I've secured my future. I've decided to move to a nice, quiet place in Florida. One I bought outright. No mortgage, no rent, no assisted living community. Just a small house on a quiet cul-de-sac. It's a bit of a fixer-upper, but you all know how I love a project. You sold the car and used the money to buy a house for yourself. You selfish old man. What about us? What about your legacy? My legacy is my wife's, and she's a far more generous soul than you will ever be. I picked up a final document. This, Clara, is a press release. It's going to be published in all the major newspapers tomorrow. It details the founding of the Eleanor Sterling Foundation for Retired Factory Workers. A foundation endowed with over $1 million. All the money from the car and a good chunk of my savings. My wife's name will be on every piece of aid and every check that helps someone in need. No, you can't, she screamed, her voice high and frantic. That money was ours, you promised. You promised us. You lied. You and your wife assumed you had my future mapped out. You assumed you had me figured out. You assumed you had all the cards, but you see, I've had the ace up my sleeve this entire time. You called me dead weight, Clara. But what you didn't realize is that for the first time in a long time, I'm lighter, free. I don't have a place to die in anymore. I have a new place to live, and to me, that is the most precious thing in the world. The other siblings, embarrassed and shocked, sat in stunned silence. Their greed had been exposed. Their carefully laid plans a smoking ruin. I watched them, their faces a mixture of disbelief, rage, and dawning horror. They had wanted to strip me of my dignity, my home, and my legacy, but in their hunger, they had been so blind they didn't see the man they were messing with. I stood there watching the chaos I had orchestrated, not with a sense of vengeance, but with a profound and quiet peace. For the first time in years, I was truly free. My dignity was mine, and the peace that came with it was a treasure they could never, ever touch.